It has been 4 weeks. We have waited, we've longed, we've watched, we've decorated, we've baked, we've listened to the music, we've watched our favorite TV specials. And every year, you can feel it build throughout those 4 weeks. Is it Christmas yet? Not quite. Getting close. And then on this night, as the organ strikes, "O come all ye faithful," something in my soul finally screams, yes, it's time. Tonight's story is full of yeses. As I read the story tonight, I have to admit, I was talking to Guy and Jessica before the service, it's always a little challenging to preach Christmas and Easter because you want to say something, but how do you say something in a fresh and new way that people haven't heard every year for the last umpteen years of their life? This is our 9th Christmas together. You've heard all my Christmas stories. But as I read the story for tonight again, what struck me as fresh and new is that this story is full of yeses. It's full of people saying yes. Joseph, yes, to a woman he dearly loved. Yes, to a woman who was pregnant and said an angel told her it was okay. Yes, to an absolutely ridiculous plan that put everything that he had in his life on hold. Maybe even yes to a future of speculation and ridicule by all those who knew him. After all, he didn't live in a very large community. People knew him, they knew Mary, and they could count to 9. You got married when? Oh, congratulations. Another yes was Mary. We talked last week a little bit in the children's sermon about Mary's yes to Jesus, referred to as the very first Christian because she's the first one to ever say yes to a relationship with Jesus Christ. I saw a Facebook meme recently that said, "Mary, did you know?" And the other part said, yes, the angel Gabriel told her she did really know. But did she really know everything? You see, when she met with Anna and Simeon in the temple to dedicate her child, Simeon said to her, "A sword will pierce your heart too." Did Mary really know what saying yes to God's plan would mean for her son? I remember being in Rome at the Vatican. It was actually right before I came to Grace Church, I believe. I remember one of the things that struck me the most was seeing the actual statue of the Pietà. If you don't know the Pietà, it's the Blessed Virgin Mary at the foot of the cross, holding her son one last time. I wonder if she had any idea what her yes would cost her as a mother. Did she know that those same arms that held her newborn baby would be the same arms that just 33 years later would cradle his body? Yeses can cost something. The shepherds said yes that night. Yes to a new future for Israel. Yes to a new future for them. Shepherds were not the most upstanding members of the society of Israel. They lived out in the field. They lived their life away from the rest of society, surrounded by animals, and frankly, they probably smelled that way. The angels could have appeared to anyone, but they appeared to the shepherds. Yes, to the hope that there was no more being on the outside. Yes, to the hope of salvation. Yes, to victory over the oppressor. Yes, to God's plan. There's the innkeeper. Or is there really? It was interesting in my research for tonight, I realized that there's no innkeeper in the Bible, guys. We made that part up. Sorry if I ruined your Christmas. We don't even know if there was an inn, quite frankly. It says in Luke's gospel, as Pastor Guy read, there was no room for them in the inn. The word that was used is the word kataluma. In Greek, it doesn't mean inn. It means lodging place. It's used two other times. First in Luke 22, which means guest chamber, and in Mark 14, that means guest bedroom. One theologian speculates that Bethlehem wouldn't have had an inn because Bethlehem was a nowhere little sleepy town. No one would have gone to Bethlehem. Why would you have an inn? So when the census came, people found rooms for their friends and their family. People found rooms where they needed to find rooms. It's altogether possible that there may not have been an inn or an innkeeper at all. But that's even more special because what it means is that someone probably had an extra bedroom, and when Mary and Joseph knocked on the door, they said there was no room. Every room was taken. But if you want to sleep downstairs with the animals in the hollowed out basement area, you're welcome there, but that's all I can offer. You see, an innkeeper is paid to take people in. A stranger in his home with his family? No. He said yes, and that yes cost him something. But the most important person who said yes in the story tonight that I want to focus on, the most important yes of all, was God. God said yes in the birth of Jesus. God said yes to a world that lived in stubborn, selfish, and blind ambition. God said yes to a world that lived in constant voices oppressed by the no's of those who lived in positions of power and prestige. God said yes to those who were marginalized and outcast and knew little to no hope for a future that they looked forward to. God said yes to a world that lived in the law. And God said yes to love instead. Michael Linvall, a Presbyterian pastor and writer, says this: the fact that Christmas has everywhere and from its beginning combined secular with sacred is actually theologically fitting. The Christian Christmas is an annual affirmation of the doctrine of incarnation. The assertion that in Jesus, God invaded humanity's time and space, our world. So in the 4th and 5th century, the God who took on flesh invaded the bawdy Roman festival of Saturnalia with its feasting and role reversals and infused it with the Christ. Christmas feasting became an affirmation of the generosity of Creator to the gift of creation. Social roles were reversed, but now in a new way, as a child born to peasants in a stable became the sovereign of heaven and of earth. Gift-bearing magi from the east knelt in submission at a feeding trough where he lay. In the Middle Ages, the God who took on flesh invaded pagan German winter solstice trees and made them a celebration of the birth of the Christ. The God who took on flesh invaded heathen Scandinavian evergreen circles and made them Advent wreaths. The God who once deigned to take on mortal flesh can, and we should trust still will, invade our present day. Fleshly and flashy Christmas celebrations with all its hoopla. There's much to be said about this effort to keep Christ in Christmas. Congregations singing Christmas hymns, pastors preaching sermons do exactly that very thing, don't they? But even as the faithful stubbornly try to put Christ in Christmas, we need to be reminded tonight that God has done a remarkably good job of exactly that, keeping Christ in Christmas. This night, friends, is God's eternal yes. This night is God's yes to humanity's need and our yes to the realities of a life lived in response to God's very gift of love in Jesus. What does that yes mean for us? How does our yes to that invitation of the newborn Christ change our future? And perhaps just as important, how does that yes transform what has been our past? This night, Christmas is the eternal, the all-encompassing, life-changing yes of God's love for us. A love that will go to any length to show us exactly who we are and whose we are. That's the message of the manger. You are my beloved. Let me come down and show you what that means. Amen.